Okay, Mr. Watson here, and in this video we're going to talk about leadership. Okay, so leadership is important in influencing the behaviour in sport, and obviously there's many examples of leaders in sport. We've got captains, we've got managers, directors above the managers, we've got coaches, like fitness coach, skills coach, all different types of coaches, physiotherapists, psychologists. So there's lots of different leadership roles within sport. But what's key is how do we be effective as a leader? How can we give out effective leadership? So let's look at a little definition. So the behavioural process influencing individuals and groups towards set goals. So in bold there we've got your influencing individuals and the group towards the set goals, either the individual goals you've given them or the team's goal. Okay? But what we say is that there are characteristics that all leaders have, and these are known as the qualities of leadership. And there's a few key ones. There's no single one which makes a good leader. They tend to have a combination. So we have good communication skills. Okay, so just being able to get their message across effectively, making sure it's understood. Okay, at the same time, making sure you can listen. Being highly motivated to succeed in your job, and then this motivation will pass through to your team and encourage them to be more motivated. So being highly motivated yourself, being enthusiastic, showing that you enjoy what you do. Okay, it's important to lead others so that they can say, oh, the coach is enjoying it, I should be feeling the same. Comprehensive knowledge, like having really good knowledge about the sport that you're leading in. Okay, this might be because you're an ex-player, so you're good at the sport yourself, but also you're just good at delivering that knowledge. You have a really in-depth understanding of that sport within tactics, strategies, etc. A clear goal and vision of knowing what's to be achieved, whether that's the 3 points, winning that game, winning the league, winning the cup, just having a clear goal or vision where you want to take the team. And then we've got empathy, so the leaders being able to put themselves in the position of others, like in their shoes, as we say, and understanding how they feel. Okay? So, we've got two ways in which you can become a leader. Okay, so we have emergent leaders. And what this means is quite simply, the leader emerges from within the group. That might be because they're skillful, they're highly talented, or the rest of the team selected them. So they emerge from within the group. So an example here is David Beckham. Now he became a leader of the England team before he was appointed captain. So before he got that official appointment, the other players saw him as a leader, and that's because his performances were very impressive and he earned the respect of others within the group. Okay. Now, emergent leaders come with advantages and disadvantages. So emergent leaders tend to win over like the hearts and the minds of the teams because they're already respected. They're being recognized as one of their own. They're familiar. They already know what skills they have. And like they're not known as an outsider. They don't see them as threatening. On the other hand, they might lack experience in the role. They also might lack objectivity. They might just, they already have their own friendships, and that might cloud their judgments and show bias. Because remember, this is just an example of a captain. Sometimes managers come from within the group. So they might already have players that they like, and they might lack that objectiveness, objectivity. And this could cause resentment in others. So there are positives and negatives. Okay, and the other thing is a prescribed leader. Now, this is a leader that's appointed to the role by a higher authority. Okay, so Fabio Capello back in the day, he was appointed by the FA to coach the England team. So the governing body chose who they wanted to manage the team. So they brought in, if you like, an outsider. The positives here is they're usually very highly qualified. Okay, they're seen as being more objective. Okay, a fresh pair of eyes, they're skilled, and they're motivated to do a good job. And they just come in focusing on the task in hand. Now, the disadvantage of this is they might come in already under pressure. They're unfamiliar to the team, so it's going to take a bit longer to get their trust. they might not understand the culture. Like if they've gone to a job abroad, which many managers do, they might not actually understand the culture there and fail to show empathy. They might actually not understand the culture there and how things are done. Now, even though they have positives and negatives, both leaders, just think of emergent and prescribed leaders of the way someone becomes a leader. So emergent emerge from within the group, prescribed, they're appointed by someone. But there are positives and negatives. Okay? So that's how you can become a leader. And then we have leadership styles. Now, lots of people have different styles of leaderships, and to be honest, it's quite common that people are a mixture of all styles, but they're more predominantly one. Okay, but we're just going to look at them individually. Okay, for now. So the first style we have is autocratic. Now, the example I've used here is Sir Alex Ferguson, one of the most successful football managers ever. But as he named one of his books, and he said previously, it's my way or the highway. So he's very task orientated. Okay, his style is more of he dictates, it's his rules. If you don't like it on the highway, you can leave. Okay, he makes most of the decisions. Okay, and little interest in building them interpersonal relationships with his group. So just put that in a table there. Now, explanation of use is good to look at. If you've got a group which has hostile, lots of conflict, someone coming in who's autocratic is probably going to work. Autocratic leaders are also going to be of use in that cognitive stage of learning. Them novice performers, they're in that early stage. Okay. In dangerous situations like rock climbing, if you're leading a group there, being in control, saying this is exactly what you do, that's probably going to suit it. And also when the task is clear, this is the task objective, this is what we want to achieve, an autocratic approach might suit best. Other researchers found that team players like this, novices, and actually males prefer the autocratic style. Research also found, though, the disadvantages. It may result in hostility between the group, and actually it demonstrates a lack of responsibility in the players because they're just waiting for the manager to tell them what to do. Or if the coach isn't there, they're not quite sure what to do. No one's going to take responsibility. Okay, so that is autocratic. Next, we've got democratic, and I've shown another one of the best managers ever, Bill Shankly. And I've got the boot room here. What the boot room was, what Bill Shankly brought in was this room where all coaches would come together and they were free to voice their opinion in this room, and they were listened to. So this democratic leader, they're more concerned with the relationships with others, they're person orientated, they invite contributions, and they share the decision making, they value hearing from others. Now, where this might be used is for more advanced performers, okay, intermediate to advanced, tasks that need social cohesion, tasks that need actually, even though we've got a clear objective, we actually need to work together and get on with each other. A democratic leader would suit that. Where there's people who wish to contribute, the team want to have some say in the game. And when the task is not dangerous and there's generally more time to complete the task, so you've got more time to make them decisions, this is where a democratic leader might come in. Now, researchers found it's suited to small teams, although I will say there's a lot of democratic leaders in football now because there's not just back in the day where there was just a manager, there is now physios, fitness coaches, other coaches. It's more of a collective decision. However, when this research started, and it is still more suited to smaller teams, females tend to benefit and prefer the democratic approach, and also individual sports, so they can add creativity and self-expression. What they also found that, on the other hand, it may result in less work being done. However, it increases the positive effect of the interactions between the people. Okay? And then finally, we had the laissez-faire. Okay? Now, this guy I've got in the picture, Greg Jackson, he's an MMA coach. Now, he's a very respected coach, and might be unfair that I'm using him in this example, but he did make this quote when he was the coach of GSP, George St. Pierre, who is known, if you don't know, the GOAT of martial arts in some people's opinion. And when he was training GSP, he made a comment, I'm just in the background. So this leader tends to take a back seat and others make the decisions. They don't really give much feedback, or maybe some, but not much, and they're quite relaxed. Now often people see this as just avoid this style at all costs because you need to have some control, but it does work with elite athletes. So like I said, GSP was known as the GOAT, so there was a lot of trust in that athlete. So if he said, today I want to work on my jiu-jitsu, Greg Jackson was like, okay, we're working on your jiu-jitsu today. So there's a lot of individual decision making. Now I've put it there that sometimes people associate that if the leader's incompetent and you've just somehow managed to be in charge of a group somehow, you'd allow the athletes to make their own decisions, and that might work in that circumstance. Or if you don't know any other style of leading. Okay, so what research found here was that it encourages a lot of creativity and encourages responsibility. However, there was one study that found that when this approach was used, there was aggressive behavior among the group. They didn't really do lots of work because we were just arguing about whose idea they should go with. And a lot of research have said this leadership style is usually avoided in most situations. However, this is just some research. Okay, so just to summarize, we'll look at another study. Now, in 2006, Crust, he did a review of leadership in sport, and he came up with the following generalizations. Novice athletes prefer more rewards, and experts prefer more democratic and social support coaching. So experts want to have some input on the decisions, and they want to get to know their coach. They want social support. Maybe when they're anxious, they want that support, okay? They found team members prefer more training and instruction, autocratic coaching and reward. So big in football, this was footballers prefer being told the tactics. They like training. This is the style, offensive plays, probably in basketball. So team sports were found to prefer autocratic, and individual sports prefer more democratic and social support again. Male athletes prefer more autocratic style, I've already mentioned that, and female prefer more democratic style. And then finally, older athletes prefer more democratic coaching, probably because they feel like they've been in the game long enough and they want to have some input on how they go forward. They also want some social support, which get adults sometimes pick up more problems, more thoughts, more anxiety, more stresses. So they might need a little bit more support so they can focus on their training and instruction. And quite simply, all athletes love rewards. I think that was just found throughout. So this is just some generalizations, but just to summarize, we've got three leadership styles: autocratic, democratic, and laissez-faire. Now, in your head now, you should be thinking actually what you prefer, or if you were to be a leader, what would you be? And that probably comes from your preference of being coached. Okay? And just finally, we're going to look at leadership theories. Now, I'm not going to talk about this too much because we covered this in personality. So as long as we can remember the main points, kind of all just fits together. So we have the trait perspective. Okay? So great leaders are born, not made. So this looks at that the behaviors are innate. People are born with, okay? They're genetic, okay? These traits produce certain patterns of behavior. These patterns of behavior are enduring. They're consistent across different situations. So very similar to personality. It's not taking into account the environment, okay? So then we've got social learning theory, where it only takes into account the environment. They say leadership characteristics are learned. So you watch the behavior of others, you model it. And in bold there, I've got vicarious learning. So the person would observe a reward given to another person, and then they'll think, oh, I want to emulate the same behavior. Now in football, you've got lots of coaches now trying to emulate the behavior of Pep Guardiola or Cruyff, these visionary, Marcelo Bielsa. They were visionary in football, and they're like, this is the way to play. And lots of coaches like, well, I want to do that. Look how successful they are. I'm going to model on that. So it's usually of a significant other, someone with that higher status, some significant person. Okay, so you're going to look up to them and try to adopt their leadership qualities rather than the trait approach, which does not take into account the environment. And then finally, the interactionist traits and the environment. Okay, so you might have certain inborn leadership traits, such as being assertive, but you might not be assertive in every situation. You might just be assertive in a sporting situation that demands you to be assertive. Okay, so it acknowledges that we might have inborn traits, but a situation will demand the behavior. Okay, and also you might not be a leader in every situation. You might just be a leader in some sports. Like if you might be a leader in football, but you go play volleyball, you might not be confident in leading. So you might have them innate characteristics, but depending on the situation, they'll demand it out of you. So just briefly there going over them three theories because we have covered that in personality. So that's our introduction to leadership. So remember, pause when you go through the video. So you should be able to get some example of leader positions in sport. Know some key qualities of effective leaders. Know how a leader might get the position, emergent or prescribed. Some advantages and disadvantages with that. Then we got the three styles, your style of leadership, and then finally some leadership theories. And like I said, usually what's common now is leaders mix between the styles, okay, depending on the situation. Okay, thank you.